Neka Pasquale, it is a pleasure to see you.
It is a pleasure to be here. Thank
We-
you for
We've
having me.
spoken on the phone once, but this is the first time we've actually looked each other in the eye. And yeah, I'm just going to start by gushing a little bit. I told you this when we talked.
Oh no,
I
we're
order
frozen.
Urban Remedy, your product, your salads and your bars and your every single week. My wife will tell you it is literally, I'm not exaggerating, eating lunch, eating specifically Urban Remedy. It's one of my favorite parts of my day. Like
Oh,
I created the Miracle Morning. I would argue, like, what do I derive more satisfaction from, my Miracle Morning or eating Urban Remedy at lunch? Like, it's neck and neck. It is a close tie. So thank you for what you've created because it adds so much value to my life. I can't even tell you.
thank you. That just means the world to me. Thank you so much. I love hearing that. That's
You're welcome.
incredible.
I'm not exaggerating. I'm not pandering.
Aw,
Like, I am so enthusiastic about your salads. I just yeah, I love it. I love it so much.
thank
Um,
you.
So let's talk about that. Like first, before we get into Urban Remedy and what you've created, um, what did you do before Urban Remedy?
So I
Like
am
for work, for a living? Yeah.
yes, I am still a licensed acupuncturist. I studied Chinese medicine. I have my master's in traditional Chinese medicine. So I've been an acupuncturist and herbalist for the last like 20, about 20 years. So I had a private practice before I started Urban Remedy, where I just did one-on-one sessions for about 11 years. And that's where I really delved into food as medicine and really, I think it's really interesting. Like we can read about diet and the importance of diet. But when you have a practice and you're treating chronically ill people and you see what's working for most people and how changing your diet is so critical. Like the people in my practice that were willing to change their diet and eat a low inflammatory diet and stop eating inflammatory foods would get better so much faster than people who were unwilling to change their diet. And so that's really the premise, that I started Urban Remedy under, really just using food as healing and also just really delving into, the way that we farm and, the toxins that we're exposed to, in the food system and really just kind of connecting the dots with those very important subjects.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I found that I would teach people how to eat like this. I would do retreats and people would come and feel great. I would do all the food and juicing and all of that. And then over time, people be like, I just can't do it. It doesn't taste as good. I can't do it. It's so expensive to go shopping and then chop everything and make everything. And so I just kind of started doing it on the side. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to juice and like make food for people on the side. So I had a full acupuncture practice and then I had like a commercial kitchen and I was making all this food. And then I finally got to the point when I got pregnant with my son in 2011, where I was like, I was like 6 months pregnant and trying to do all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? I think it's really time to take a break from, the one-on-one, which is a really difficult decision, and just kind of really focus on the food part because I felt that it was so important.
Wow.
Yeah.
You said you talk about food is healing. That's and it says on your website, like more than a tagline, right? Like it's really what you believe. Have you ever heard of or seen the documentary Raw for 30 Days?
I think I saw, when was that, a while ago?
A long time ago,
Yes.
like probably more than a decade ago.
Yes.
Yeah, and
I,
it
I,
was
yeah.
basically they took a couple dozen roughly or 16 or something like that,
Yes.
type 2 diabetics, and they
Yes.
took them out into like a cabin where they could not access any other food other than what they were given. They were raw
Yes.
vegan, and 100% of them were off of their insulin within 30 days,
Yes.
right?
Well, was that a guy from Australia?
I do not remember. It's been so
Okay.
long.
I believe I met him one time, but I actually, when I had my practice, probably a little bit before that came out, I was lucky enough to take some courses with Dr. Gabriel Cousens, who wrote a book about using plant-based foods to cure diabetes. And he would bring people and do the same thing. He has a place in Arizona. And that was very, very inspiring to me. And so I incorporated some of those principles into my practice at that time. And at that time, I was doing mostly live raw food and juicing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people ask, as an acupuncturist in Chinese medicine, they say you don't want to eat a lot of raw cold food because it's really difficult for the spleen and stomach for your digestion. But I kind of use those principles where I would use warming ingredients, and I still do, to things that are cool. Like obviously lettuce, not obviously, but lettuce is cooling, for example, like very simple. And so when you add things like ginger in your dressings or red peppers or things that are warming, you can offset the very cold properties of things that are cooling, which in Chinese medicine might be a little bit hard on the digestion.
So were you, so Urban Remedy is organic vegan, right?
Certified organic,
Yeah.
yes.
Now, and
Vegan.
it's not completely raw, right? It's mostly raw.
We have a lot of, I would say in the last, 5 years, I've incorporated more cooked components, but things that are cooked are, really in their whole state, meaning like something like we use like an regenerative certified, obviously organic rice in our burrito bowl.
Yeah.
We use
Oh,
like
that's right. Yeah.
quinoa, organic quinoa in our macro bowl. So I have incorporated some cooked ingredients because I think that there really has to be a balance.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to do that. So people that are raw, there's options for people that just want raw. And then there's options that are more hearty and filling for people that would like to incorporate those.
I appreciate that. One of my favorite restaurants in the world is Cafe Gratitude. I'm assuming
Yes.
you're familiar.
Me too. Yes.
And they were raw vegan for
Yes.
many, many years. And then they incorporated cooked food. And it's like, it's nice to go there for dinner and have
so
something
great.
warm,
Oh
right?
yes, I agree. I love how they have transformed the same way, but different. And I love, they have the best nachos I've ever had in my life. I love their food. It's so good.
I love their food. It's when I go, I used to live near their San Diego location.
Yes.
Like for my 30th birthday, that's where I went to I lived in San Francisco. I went to San Francisco. Like my life revolves around Cafe Gratitude when it's nearby. I want to ask you too. So now what's your diet like? Are you completely vegan or what's your diet like?
I am not completely vegan, but I do not eat dairy.
Yeah,
and I don't really like to put myself in a category of like vegan or not vegan. I like to say that, my theory or my, belief around food is really more around like regenerative agriculture and farming. So everything that I choose will be organic or pasture raised or, on that level. I'm not, I've done it all. Like I've been raw for many years. I was vegan. I was vegetarian. I've done a lot of diet. So I just really try to do intuitive eating and eat what I feel is right for myself at the time. And I don't like to put myself in a box because, I like to be able to be flexible.
Sure. Flexitarian, right, is what they call it.
Yeah.
So for me, the way I usually define my diet, if people, because I get asked sometimes, I say I'm raw vegan by day and paleo by night.
I love that. That's great.
I'm organic raw vegan for breakfast with my smoothie for Urban Remedy for lunch, and then whatever my wife makes for dinner, which is often pasture raised chicken, or last night I had grass fed steak or wild caught salmon, or whatever.
I think for me, it's really, I try not to have judgment in anybody's choice of what they're eating, except when it comes to like factory farming or conventional farming. Those for me are like always a no. But
let's not gloss over, but dive in a little bit. Why no to factory farming, and why are you so passionate about regenerative agriculture?
Yeah, I mean, I just think, when we say, like, for example, Urban Remedy, our food is healing to people on the planet, is because when you look at the bigger picture of, let's just say, the United States right now, and how many monocrops we have that are conventional, and how much the pesticide use used on those crops is affecting the soil and affecting our air that we breathe and our water. That piece right there, I just don't want to contribute to that. And I don't want to put those chemicals and pesticides in my body. So I choose to eat only organic because I want to support organic farming, regenerative farming, which supports soil health, which is one of the things that's going to really help heal the environment and our planet, and help to support our our ecosystem. It's like when you hear about like the bees and the butterflies and all of these really important species in the environment that are going extinct and are being killed off by all of these pesticides. For me, that's like a hard no.
Yeah.
In organic farming and regenerative farming, those things are part of the farming process and thought about, and so I believe very strongly in that whole system. And I think it's better for me personally. It's, I love, like, in Chinese medicine, there's a saying, what's better for me is better for you. What's better for the environment is better for everybody. So it's kind of that thought that we're all interconnected. When I make a choice like that, it's good for me, but it's good for the bees and the butterflies and, everybody, in our society. And then when you look at something like factory farming, I mean, that is just always a hard no for me because, that kind of farming is so incredibly inhumane to the animals and the environment. I mean, the waste that it creates that goes into the water systems and the insane cruelty and suffering that these animals endure is, I think it's just criminal. I think if anybody were to visit one of these factory farms or even watch a documentary on how these animals are treated, and that's dairy, so it includes like milk and cheese and obviously any kind of meat or eggs. I don't think anybody would ever choose it, but I think a lot of people have their blinders on, and I don't like to say complicit, but I think anytime, I do feel that if you are buying factory farm meat, there is a complicity that happens, because then you're really supporting something that is very inhumane and would just hurt anybody's heart, to see. And I'm not staunch vegan, and I'm not coming from that place. I'm just coming from a place, again, of we're interconnected, and why do we have to have these beings suffer so that we can,
Well, and the thing is, because of the way that they're raised and the hormones that they're pumped with and the GMO grains they're fed, we suffer too. Like we suffer, right? Like they suffer on the front end and then we suffer on the back end. Yeah, it's interesting. One thing I will not eat out at like 99% of restaurants. And it's because my favorite restaurant used to be Yard House. You're familiar?
No.
It's a chain, and they've got, 200 beers, and they've got just amazing food taste-wise, right?
Yeah.
And my COO, she was a waitress there. That's actually where I met her. She was the most amazing waitress ever. I hired her as my intern, and then my assistant, now my COO. But Tiffany, but we were, when I hired her, and I was like, yeah, I love Yard House. It's like my favorite restaurant. And at that time, I thought I was pretty healthy, and it was what I would like splurge and go there. She goes, and she just told me, she goes, Hal, you have to realize that at 99% of restaurants, if not 99.9%, they're buying the lowest quality ingredients to maximize their profit.
Yes.
She goes, and all they're doing is using a lot of salt to make it taste really good. And then she told me horror stories of like what happens in the kitchen of stuff getting dropped on the ground and they wipe it off, or, right. And so I was like, I never ate at Yard House again, like my favorite restaurant.
Yeah.
But the thing is, most restaurants use seed oils, for example, which are inflammatory, which cause disease, cancer, on and on and on.
Yes.
There's literally, it's less than 1% of restaurants that don't cook with seed oils.
Yes.
Here in Austin, Texas, I found a restaurant called The Well, and they literally on their menu that we only use coconut oil,
that's so great,
olive oil, and avocado oil. Right? I'm like, I will eat there, and our beef is grass fed, and our chicken is pasture raised, and our produce is organic. Right? But I've literally called not every restaurant, but every restaurant I want to go to in Austin, and I just always call with some like high end. I'm like, hey, is any of your produce organic? No. Yeah. Is any of your beef grass fed? And it's usually somebody, right? Let me ask.
Yeah, they have no idea. Yeah, then you don't know.
Because otherwise, if you have values in terms of the food that you serve, like you do, right? You know, right? And everyone on your team, there's not a person that works at Urban Remedy that I'm like, if I call them, I'm like, is your food organic? They're like, let me let me ask my supervisor. Right?
Well, I think one of the biggest like red flags is if you say, oh, do you serve? Because if you and I went to eat, we would totally be on the same page and asking the same questions.
Totally.
But, it's like, are you using organic produce? And really people say, oh, we try to use it when we can, which really means you're not using it. And I'm totally on the same page with you. I try to, eat. I'm lucky because I eat in Marin and there are couple restaurants that serve organic, but usually they still are using seed oils. But I think like with the movement and there's such a big push around seed oils right now. I feel like more people are going to be jumping on the bandwagon, getting off seed oils. But I'm like the person, I'll go to a restaurant. I did this with my son the other day and I didn't even tell him. He wanted to go eat at this really cool place out in Point Reyes. And I like made my own dressing and I put it in a container. And I didn't want to embarrass him, but I was like, okay, I'm going to have this salad. And, I don't even think it was organic, but I didn't want to ask him embarrassed. And then like when he wasn't looking, like I poured my own salad dressing on the salad, or I'll bring my own like organic ketchup or things like that because,
No, but, so what I do now with Urban Remedy, and this was such a hack, and I don't know why I never thought of it. So, traveling, I'm a speaker, so I travel quite a bit, and it's so hard. I mean, usually what I do is when I land somewhere, I find the nearest Whole Foods, and if it's in a decent sized city, I can do it. So I load up on organic avocados and dressing and that. That's where I discovered Urban Remedy is in your cooler at Whole Foods. I want to ask you about that, by the way. How'd you get in Whole Foods? But hang on that thought. But so what I do now is I make my Urban Remedy salad before I get on the plane. I divide it into 2 like Tupperware containers. And then I get a cooler with ice, like a little carry-on. And that's one of my carry-ons now is my 2 Urban Remedy. And then I have to share this hack.
You have to send me a picture because I actually want to see what that looks like.
Okay, I will. I'm going next week. I will absolutely have my Urban Remedy. So, but listen to this hack. This is amazing. And I've never shared this on the podcast. I've been thinking I need to share this on social media. So I also get organic, and Urban Remedy makes organic juices. I actually support this local place that makes these organic juices.
Yeah.
But, they're like 12 ounces, 16 ounces. They're too big for the plane, right?
Right.
So what I do is I buy these little Suja vitamin B12 glass jar shots that are like 2 ounces. And then after I drink them, I wash them out and save them. And then when I fly, I just fill 8 of them with my organic juice. And then I put them in the cooler next to the Urban Remedy. So like, I feel like I am eating like a king on the plane.
And so you're just doing like little 2 ounce shots. Oh, that's so great.
I'm eating Urban Remedy. I'm drinking organic juice. Like it's amazing.
Yeah. That is so funny. I love that.
And I'll even bring enough now. I'll even double up and I'll bring 4 of them. So I have enough to eat like on a 2-day trip. Like I'll just eat Urban Remedy the whole time. So yeah.
And people do that. We have people that are like, I'm flying to Chicago or New York. Can you ship it to my hotel? And they'll just get it shipped to their hotel. When I went to Disneyland recently, I filled my whole Disneyland fridge with Urban Remedy. I just brought a big box and I just had it in there because they don't have great food. So it's such a great offer.
I forgot where I went. I went and visited. It was either my dad or my sister. And that's what I did. I changed the shipping on my order that week. And I just had it delivered to me there. And it was like, it's like I'm at home,
That's so great.
Yeah. I literally might be your biggest fan.
Oh my God. What's your favorite urban, like what is the salad that you eat the most?
So, I'll tell you, so it used to be the vegan Caesar.
Yes.
And I ate it so much that I got a little bit too, I ate too much.
Yeah.
But it's the burrito bowl and the what's the one with the crunchy, the eggplant?
Oh, the eggplant chop.
Eggplant chop salad.
Yeah.
So my 2 favorite are eggplant chop is probably tied with the burrito bowl, and then the nice. There you go.
The chop.
That's what I had. I had a chop today. That's what I had for lunch. Yeah. And it's funny, like for everyone listening, I'm not selling Urban Remedy. Like they're not my sponsor.
We don't pay him. I swear.
No, it is actually. It's funny, and this is my personality. My friend John, he tells the story. He goes, "I think Hal sells everything because when he starts talking about something, I'm like." Oh, he goes, I didn't know you were selling that now. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not. He's like, oh, I totally thought you were the way you talked about it.
I am the same way. There's a lady that I see for body work and I saw her yesterday. She's a somatic therapist. Yeah. And she goes, Neka, I just have to tell you, she goes, and I had done a podcast with her, but love her so much that I talk about her all the time. And she goes, you have literally quadrupled, if not more, my business. She's like, because you keep telling everybody. And she's like, oh my God. And I go, I don't even realize it. I just like, if there's something that works for me, I love sharing that with other people. I'm the same way. I think it's so great.
No, I think we're very similar. We have a similar diet.
Yes.
We both love Urban Remedy. We both are huge promoters of anything that we love.
Yes.
So I want to ask you, for anybody listening, like, you started this business. Urban Remedy is now in Whole Foods all over, which, by the way, now that I have you in front of me, it is not in any of the Austin Whole Foods. Can you somehow fix that?
Yes.
The other day, my order, UPS was late delivering my order.
Yeah.
This is how much I called there are 3 Whole Foods in Austin. I called every single one. I'm like, do you carry Urban Remedy? And none of them did. And I was so sad. And I know
we are working on that. We are trying to get into the Austin Whole Foods. I think that is happening relatively soon, but definitely ask, the manager, like, we'd love to have Urban Remedy. And it's so funny because that is where Whole Foods, home base is. And so, yes, we are working on being there. Hopefully we'll be there soon.
So I want to ask you 2 questions. Is how did you start Urban Remedy? And then, like, how did you get it into Whole Foods? Because to me, like, you started this incredible company, this incredible brand, and you are now in one of the biggest chain, health stores in the world. So those to me are both 2 huge accomplishments, and they're different kinds, right? One is starting something from scratch. The other is like the ultimate dream of any founder, which is like, imagine starting, you're just hoping that it gets off the ground, but then you're like, dude, what if we got in Whole Foods one day? You're like, oh, come on, that's crazy. So those 2.
Yeah. And I was just having a memory of when you and I spoke, and I think it's important to weave that through. So when I started Urban Remedy, I honestly was not trying to start some big company. I really thought I was going to be opening like one location with a kitchen for people that were like you and I in Marin County, where, people are very open to this kind of eating. And so I opened that store. I built out a kitchen there, and within 6 months,
Urban Remedy started as a storefront.
Yes. So I had my acupuncture practice, and then I started doing like juice and food on the side for my patients. And then they started telling people, and I was doing more retreats, and then it just kind of created a life of its own. And then I developed like a really small website for people in San Francisco and Marin that wanted to have this kind of food. And people just loved it. And we were like delivering, and I didn't know what I was doing. Like I said, my background was in Chinese medicine and healing and herbs and all of that. And so, but I was like, I'm just going to go with this. The universe is like opening this up to me. People want it. And so I just kept going with that. And then I kept getting.
What year was that you started?
So that was like, I started doing the retreats in like 2014, around there. And then, 14. What am I talking about? Like 2004, 2006, I started retreats.
Okay.
And then in 2011 is when I stopped my acupuncture practice after 11 years, which is really difficult. And that's when I was like, I'm just going to see where this goes. Like I was treating a lot of very chronically ill people, and I was pregnant, and I was like, I need a break from that intensity after 11 years. And anyways, and so I just started doing this, and people really wanted it, and everybody was telling somebody else. And I remember like the first big thing that happened was I got this call, and somebody was like, we love your products. We live in San Francisco. They were part of, what's it called? They do like specials on, not Groupon, but they do a special online, and you could sign up, and it was something like that. It was Guilt. It was called Guilt. I just remembered. Okay. And I was like, sure, I've never heard of it, but like, let's just try it. And she's like, it will be just like on there for like 2 days, and you could sell 200 juice cleanses or something. And this is before there was like pressed juicery or any kind of juice things going on. And so I gave them my phone number. I didn't even know what I was doing. Then like a month later, my phone is like ringing off the hook because I gave them my cell phone. And I was answering the phone, and I was like, and people were wanting these juice cleanses, and they were like, your cleanses sold out in 2 minutes. Like, do you want to do more? And that's what really, all of a sudden, it just got huge.
Wow.
And then I was at a point where I had just had my son, and I was married, and I was like, that just was not working out. And I was really at this juncture where I was like, I have to get out of this situation. But I hadn't really been working. I was just doing Urban Remedy. And I get this random call from these guys in LA that were like, we love what you're doing. We heard about it here down in LA. We want to partner with you and, give you some funding. And it was just another, I'm just sharing that because it was another, the universe opening up the doors for me.
Totally.
And they were like, we'll give you $1 million. And at that point, I was like, $1 million. Like, I could build out the best kitchen. I'll never need more money again.
Yeah.
And so I took the money, I built out my kitchen. And then, like I said, 6 months later, that kitchen, we totally outgrew it. And then it was like a shit show because then I had to like rent an extra, like all these huge coolers and storage units to put things. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I was the CEO. I was like procurement. I was HR. I had a baby that I was breastfeeding, and I was just like going for it though. I'm a really good multitasker. So I was like, I'm just going to keep seeing this thing through. And then, anyways, a little time went by, and it was really cool because also during that point, I'm just sharing because it's an interesting part of my journey. I got introduced to Cindy Crawford, and she was like, I love what you're doing. Like, I want to partner with you. I want to support your vision of what is happening. And I was like, oh my, here I am, like a new mom, and I'm doing this. How is this even happening in my life? And I wasn't feeling really great about myself because I just had a child, and I had like still had a weight to lose. And I was just, I was just so overwhelmed. And I remember like a point where the universe kind of asked me, like, do you want to go down this path? Are you sure? Like, are you ready for this? Because it was going to challenge everything I felt about myself. Like, am I willing to like use my voice and to be, out there with kind of the message that I have? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go for it. Because when I had to start showing up in a different way, and working with somebody like her, I couldn't like half-ass it because I was like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I remember like in that moment, like being with her when we first did a photo shoot and being like, holy shit, how am I like doing a photo shoot? Yeah. And I remember being like so embarrassed and shy. And like, I felt like I was on the set of Saturday Night Live, like, just like, what am I doing here? And then I remember like, I better step my game up and just like, go for it. I'm going to ruin this opportunity. And so those kinds of things and hurdles like have really helped me grow and have more kind of faith in myself and belief in the process. And so anyways, over time, I hired a CEO, and he was amazing and with the company for 9 years. And he is the one that I credit to us getting these Whole Foods kiosks. So we have Whole Foods as an investor in Urban Remedy, which was a really amazing partnership. We got into Whole Foods, and they were supporting us when we were really small and in the Bay Area. And it was just kind of like a brainstorm he had with one of the owners, was like, what if we had these branded Urban Remedy? Because they were not offering as much fresh at that time, and they were having some issues around that offer. And we were like, here, we can give you the certified organic Urban Remedy fridge. And they loved the idea. And I remember thinking, how the hell are we going to do this? Like, this is so exciting, but so overwhelming, because we had 20 stores, in that time period. And so, excuse me,
were your stores, like when I order Urban Remedy and I get it right there, it's prepackaged? Is that how it was sold at those stores, or was it like actually, it was the prepackaged?
People like that. Yeah, everything is ready to eat. And so, we started in the Bay Area, and that did really well. And then we went to SoCal, and that did even better. And then from there, we're in about 300, we have about 300 kiosks or presence in Whole Foods Market, which is so exciting. And I can't even believe, like, I was at my Whole Foods this morning, and I walked by, and I'm like, I can't even believe, like, I know it's a dream to have your own branded kiosk at a Whole Foods. So I feel very grateful, but there's still a lot of challenges, keeping it stocked and managing the inventory. I mean, we still are I get calls and texts all the time. Like, I went by, like, from people in New York, you never have your matcha bars, or why are you out of this, or why are you out of that? So that's a challenge that we're really trying to overcome. Yeah.
Yeah. That's incredible. And so, how many years ago did you get into Whole Foods?
Oh, I'm terrible with time. So we've been in Whole Foods for a few years before COVID. So probably 2019 maybe, or
Okay.
2018 we started. Yeah,
So
somewhere around there.
3, 4, 5 years, right on. And
Yeah.
so, and what's new for you, and what's next?
So what's new? So what's new from a product perspective is I just developed 3 new flavors of cookies. 2 of them are grain free. Everything we do is gluten free, so I don't usually mention that because
Yeah.
it's always, everything we do is like a food safe zone. We never do dairy, seed oils, gluten, white sugar, artificial colorings or flavorings, iodized salt, like any of that kind of stuff. We use really clean ingredients. So these cookies are all of those things, plus they're grain free except the oatmeal. So I have a double chocolate, and did we send you cookies?
No, I'll take
I'm
some.
gonna send you some cookies. Double
Thank you.
chocolate, oatmeal, walnut, raisin, and then the chocolate chip cookies, and they're in little bite size or a single cookie, and they're super good for traveling and whatnot. They have low net carbs, and they're so good, and they're dehydrated, and they're incredible. So those, and then we just launched some new Sun Squares. So those, a couple new flavors of coffee,
I
lion's
love
mane.
those. I've been having the coffee ones like every day.
Oh, good. Yeah, I
So good.
love those too. And then we have a crispy rice. So kind of like really delving a little bit more into fresh snacking. And, those products have a little bit longer shelf life. And the salads are my passion, and all of the fresh food. Those are a little more difficult to scale because of purge and the short
Mm,
shelf life that they have.
yeah.
So trying to balance out those 2 things, I would say that's probably our biggest challenge, is how do you scale fresh?
Got it. I'll
Yeah.
tell you, Brianna Greenspan is one of my best friends, and she's the director of education for the Miracle Morning. She brings the
Oh,
Miracle
cool.
Morning to schools. And I text her earlier. She's like, "What are you up to? You talk?" I said, "I'm not available. I'm about to interview the founder of Urban Remedy." And she texts me, "Best bars ever."
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. So you got a bunch of fans over here at Miracle Morning.
Oh.
And then what's next for you in terms of, I mean, you personally, you professionally, like whatever is on the horizon that you're excited about?
Um, that's a good question. I, am very focused on fixing any issues that we have right now. So really getting those kiosks optimized, and like really like, how do we do that? Constantly working on product innovation. I have a new ingredient that I'm really excited about working with that it's a very clean ingredient, and it's been studied. They've done clinical trials on humans, because I'm sure like a lot of things, like even turmeric, you can't make a health claim on a label. Like I couldn't put for
Mhm.
lowers inflammation.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
with this new ingredient, that's not new. It's something you would know. They've done human clinical trials so that we can make the health claims, and
Okay.
so it's really exciting to be able to use something that has such functional benefits and be able to talk about it in the product. So I'm working on that. So you'll be the first to know when I can
Yeah.
like
No,
let that
that's
out.
so exciting.
I'm letting out that. And then also like personally, I feel like I would love to share like more information on Chinese medicine, living in harmony with nature, just like, a lot of those things that we were just talking about, because I'm always so busy with Urban Remedy stuff that I don't share a lot of the information, especially about like our mission and all of that, as much as I would like to. So I want to really try to make more space for doing that.
I'll have to have you back on just to dive deep into the Chinese medicine piece and what
Yeah.
you're doing. Yeah, there's so much more I could talk to you. I have to pick up my son from school in about to leave in
Yeah.
10
Yeah. Yeah.
minutes. But today I just almost I guess fanboyed over Urban Remedy, and
Aw.
I'm such a fan. What else? There was one other thing that I was going to ask you. Where can people get Urban Remedy? I order it, just so everyone knows. I
Yeah.
order it. I order a box of it every week, and it's funny. My mother-in-law fell in love with it, so I have to
Aw.
split part of the order with her.
That's
And
so
so
sweet.
she gets part of it, I get most of it, and so I order it every week at urbanremedy.com. But like Whole Food, where do people go to get Urban Remedy?
Yeah, so and it's one of our challenges, but it's great that we have all these channels. So we send direct to you. If you order on urbanremedy.com, we can ship it anywhere in the country. And you could order all of the products. And then obviously we're at Whole Foods kiosks, and we're also in other natural grocers. We have like juices and shots at Kroger, which is a new thing, which is super exciting for us. We're at places like Jimbo's and like the Good Earth and a bunch of local natural grocers. And then we have storefronts. We have 5 stores now in California in the Bay Area. So we have 3 channels.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you need more representation in Austin. If there's anything that I can do to support it.
I'm going to find out. We've been talking about it. So I'm going to find out and I'll let you know like the date that's going to happen.
Yeah, I'll be your biggest supporter here. So cool. Well,
thank
Neka,
you.
We will have to do this again.
Yes.
There's so much more we could talk about, but thank you so much for the time again. Thank you for listening to the intuitive calling in your heart and in your soul to create food that actually heals other people and do it at scale. I think it's a remarkable mission that you're on, and I'm grateful that I get to be the beneficiary of it.
Thank you so much. That means so much. Thank you so much for having me on, and I look forward to talking to you more.
You are so welcome. Everybody go check out urbanremedy.com. I'm telling you, it's the best thing ever. And love you so much. I will talk to you next week.